Honestly, compared to some of the work conferences I've been to before, this one's not that bad. What's up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to the channel. If you're looking for something to watch this weekend, you're going to come across The Conference, a brand new Nordic comedic horror movie. And just look at that poster. I mean, come on. That's awesome. And like I said, this is a comedic slasher about a team-building conference attended by municipal employees that spirals into a nightmare when accusations of corruption begin to circulate and plague the work environment. And at the same time, there's a mysterious figure going around in this mask, murdering the participants one by one, and we're trying to figure out who it is. But really, the movie doesn't focus as much on the mystery of it all. It focuses more so on this. It's almost a workplace comedy type thing. I don't want to make an Office comparison because it's very different, but that's the vibe it's going for. And seeing all of these very different personalities away on this trip, they're not getting along. Some of them do, some of them don't. But you can understand that there's some tension between a few of the characters, and that's slowly fleshed out as the movie goes, even though, you know, a lot of it's surface level. And you don't care. I just want to see people get murdered. Where's the murderer? There he is.
Here's Johnny.
This comes to us from Sweden. I've seen a couple of Swedish projects on Netflix, and while I'm hot on some, cold on the others, I feel like there is a very distinct vibe that this movie has that it just feels different than some other recent comedic horror movies that I've seen, and that's good, right? You have characters who, again, there's not a lot of depth to them, but there are some moments, whether it be trying to go for the humor, not always landing with that humor, but I think some of those relationships are relatable enough to where you can watch everything going down before the murders start happening and say, yeah, I've been there, I've done that. This type of thing, it's the worst. And you get the cheesiness and silliness of, oh, we're going to come together and we're going to bond as a team. And they do, all right. They sure do. You have the older characters, they've been there a while. They don't care about the conferences and meetings as much as they do the food. What time are we going to eat? Some of them that are very passionate and straightforward and they're striving to move up in the company. Others that are passionate in their own way. But there are two characters here, one by the name of Jonas, and you hate him. I hated Jonas. You're supposed to feel that way, but my God, just the slimy, nasty, horrible person. But he does a nice job portraying that on screen. They think they're all that in a bag of chips, right? They're doing things going behind the backs of some of the people that they work with. They're quoting Wolf of Wall Street. That's who they look up to. I'm like, dude, come on. I mean, great movie, but come on.
What you talking about, Wolf?
And I think it all depends on what you want from this film, where your patience is going to be at, right? Because it does take a while to get to the actual slasher portion of this movie. So it's more of a comedic workplace comedy type film for almost half of the runtime before we fully get into the slasher portion. I mean, there are some moments at the beginning, but it takes a while to get there. And I found myself getting just a little frustrated with that because while there are some scenes that kind of work, those relatable moments, especially if you've been there in the workplace, and trust me, I used to work for the government. We've had a couple of these retreats. Again, they might have been worse than what happens in this movie. But I was really looking forward to the promise that the poster gave us, this crazy slasher type movie, and we get there and all chaos ensues. But with that much buildup, I should feel like I have a better connection to these characters than I actually do. And that is the main problem with this film. Each individual character, they don't necessarily stand out. I mean, you hate a guy like Jonas, right? But the others, you don't really build that connection to. It's more being able to relate to the situation and the team bonding and some of the comedy that comes from that, even though not all of it hits. That actually worked, but if you don't care as much about the characters in those situations, then by the time you get to the slasher, which again takes a little bit, you're not going to be as invested. Now, that being said, while I wasn't fully invested in those characters, the slasher moments in this movie, they're actually quite fun. And I actually really appreciated some of the editing in this film. There's one moment where somebody gets stabbed and you see a blood splatter, but then it transitions into food splattering onto a plate. And I'm just like, it's a little cheesy, but I think it works. Obviously, with any good slasher, you have the things that don't happen on camera and do. More of the do by the time you get to the end of the film. But I think both of the approaches that they went for worked, and I actually like how the slasher in this movie is shrouded by mystery. I think there is a problem with the script to where it almost feels like it is a big deal to figure out who this is, but by the end of the film, it doesn't matter. It's not a spoiler. It's not a big deal, right? But how this slasher comes to be and how the slasher finds their mask in the midst of what they're doing instead of it being a part of who they already are, I thought that was pretty creative. I just wish we wouldn't have focused as much on, oh my God, who's doing this? Because by the end of the film, it really doesn't matter. What matters is the entertainment that comes from all of these crazy things happening on screen. And while I feel like the screenplay in this film is familiar and overall not very strong, the entertainment factor is there. So I think a lot of people are going to watch this movie. And I think the fact that it's on Netflix is great because you don't have to fully get invested in it. You can turn it on in the background and watch all these crazy things happen in the second half of the film. Thanks so much for watching this video, hanging with me as I get through these back problems. Let me know down below, did you enjoy this comedic slasher? While the conference takes too long to reach what viewers are waiting for, the payoff is ultimately worth it. There are some wild kills, interesting transitions, and some solid comedic moments. I definitely needed more from certain characters, but I could see a lot of people watching this and having a great time with it. Thanks so much for watching this video. Hopefully more reviews to come soon, and we're going to get back to our Oscar talk. And next week, Killers of the Flower Moon.